Hello, in this video we're going to deploy a Contactzilla address book to Android devices using Hexnode. If you've deployed a Contactzilla address book to iPhones before, the Android flow is slightly different. With iOS, contacts are deployed directly using a configuration profile. And on Android, because CardDAV isn't built in, we use a small sync connector app that runs in the background to deliver the contacts into the device's native Contacts app. So the overall flow looks like this. First, in Contactzilla, we generate an Android configuration file for our address book. And then in Hexnode, we deploy the Contactzilla Sync connector app using managed Google Play. We apply the address book configuration to that connector using a policy and assign the policy to a device group. From the user's point of view, the result is simply that the contacts appear in the native Android Contacts app. For this walkthrough, we're assuming you already use Hexnode with Android Enterprise, that managed Google Play is set up, and that your Android devices are already enrolled in a device group. And I'm logged into Hexnode here, and you can see that I have a device group named Android Skyline Field Group, which I'll use to control exactly which phones receive this address book. So I'm going to switch over to my Contactzilla dashboard. Over in my Contactzilla dashboard, I've opened up the address book I want to deploy, and I've clicked on Device Connections. The first thing I'm going to do is select Android from the drop-down here for connection type. The next step is to assign the connection to a team member. So in Contactzilla, you can assign a connection directly to any team member, and that's useful if you just want to get contacts onto that person's phone individually. They can scan a QR code and set it up themselves very easily. But for MDM rollouts, we use a special kind of user called an MDM user, which is a device-only account. So let's create one now. I'll head over to Team Members and add an MDM user, device-only access. The email address here is arbitrary, so you can put anything in there. Hit Add, and that's done. You'll see that MDM user added here under Team Members. Let's head back over to Device Connections, and I'm going to select that new MDM user that we just created. Label sync, I'm just going to leave as the default setting. And now decide on the access level for the end users. So for most managed rollouts, full read-only is a popular choice because it prevents any accidental changes to your master contact list. You can, of course, do a full read-write rollout, giving the end users the ability to edit contacts. And if you do select that, we have a handy feature just here to give them that editing capability, but still prevent them from deleting any contacts. And I do want to touch on selective read-only because it's a very useful feature. You don't have to send the entire address book to every device. Instead, you can choose one or more labels, and only the contacts with those labels are deployed to the devices. So if I just add a couple here and hit create, you can see my selective read-only rollout is here ready to go. But I'm going to go with a read-only. And finally, you want to set the number of device connections to match your rollout, and then click create. And under the new device connection, I will click setup and download the Android profile we can deploy directly through Hexnode. Here in Hexnode, we'll start by adding the Contactzilla Sync app from managed Google Play. I'm going to go to Apps, and then the Add Apps drop-down, and then select Managed Google Apps. From here, I'll search for Contactzilla Sync, click through on the Contactzilla Sync app, and then choose Select. And you can see it's already been added for me. So at this point, the app is available in the console, but it's not installed on any devices yet. So the next step is to deploy it using a policy. I'm going to go to Policies, click New Policy, create a fully custom policy, and give this policy a name, in my case, Contactzilla Install Sync App. I'm going to switch to the Android tab here and scroll down to the App Management section and click on Required Apps. Hit Configure. You might want to tick this optional box here to remove apps from device on policy removal. And that way, if the policy is deleted or a device is removed from it, the Contactzilla Sync app will also be removed automatically. That's completely optional. And then we're going to click the Add App drop down here and select Add App. Search for Contactzilla, select it and choose Done, and that should now show up here in Required Apps. Next, still under App Management, I'll open App Permissions and hit Configure, followed by Add New App Permission. I'll find Contactzilla Sync in the list and click Select. So on this screen, we'll leave most permissions set to their default values and only allow the permissions required for contact syncing. I'm going to set Read Your Contacts to Allow, Modify Your Contacts to Allow, and Send Push Notifications will allow that as well. Leave the others on default and hit Done, and then Save. So now we'll assign the policy to our device group. So I'll move across to the Policy Targets tab, and I'll select Device Groups from the left here and click Add Device Groups. And find my Android device group. I'm on page 3 here. You can also use the search up here as well. I'm going to tick the check box next to it and click OK. There is my group showing here. So I'm ready to click Save in the top right and then confirm on the prompt that appears. At this point, the Contactzilla Sync app will install automatically on all devices in that group with the correct permissions applied. Now we're going to create one more policy, and we'll use the Android configuration file that we downloaded from Contactzilla to tell the Sync app which address book to sync to these devices. So we're already in the right place under Policies. We're going to click New Policy again, create a fully custom policy. This time I'll name it something like Contactzilla Deploy Address Books Android. I'll switch to the Android tab, scroll down to App Management and open App Configuration and then Configure. We're going to add new configuration, select Contactzilla Sync once again from the list, and now we have a configuration application screen in front of us. You'll see a number of fields here that you can leave as they are. Proxy type, proxy host, proxy port. They can all be left as is. You can change the default sync interval here to a more frequent value if required. For example, setting this to 30 will make Contactzilla Sync refresh every 30 minutes instead of using the default interval. So here are the fields that we need to populate, and each of these fields map to a value in the Contactzilla JSON file that we downloaded from the Contactzilla dash at the start of this video. So I've pulled up my JSON file here. We're going to add the organization name from here. This is the name of my Contactzilla team, Skyline Development Group. And managed by, we just put the same thing in there. Email address is shown here in the JSON file. So I'm going to paste that in. I'm going to take this password here within the quote marks. And the account name from here, which you may have noticed is the name of my address book. So leave everything else as it is. Scroll to the bottom and hit Done, and now Add. And as is always the way, all we need to do now is assign this new policy to our device group. Exactly the same steps as with the Contactzilla app install. So over to the Policy Targets tab, Device Groups, Add Device Groups, search for your group, select it and hit OK. Before I hit Save on this, I want you to see what happens on the device. So here is my Android phone with no contacts yet. I'm going to hit Save on this policy and confirm that. And while we wait for this to populate, let's have a look at the Contactzilla Sync app on this device. I can see that my Project Cascade Tower address book is now present, and you can hit this Sync button manually at any time. So back over to the Contacts app, and depending on how you have accounts set up on your devices, you may need to go into the Contact Accounts by pressing the avatar here and selecting the new Contactzilla address book just here. If I click the hamburger menu, I can also view our labels. So let's, for example, take this engineers group and view the contacts in there. Let's head over to our Contactzilla dashboard and make a change to a contact and watch that update on our phone. I'm going to filter down to that engineers group by applying a label filter. And let's take the top contact here and make an edit to the name. Now we did set a sync interval when rolling out this address book of 30 minutes, so that will keep the address book nicely up to date. But if I want to test this now, I can go to the Contactzilla Sync app and manually sync. And we can see that that contact's name is updating already. If I want to deploy another address book to this device group, let's say, for example, I have some critical contacts that need adding, and we want to keep them separate. I'm going to select the address book here in Contactzilla, and then go to Device Connections once again. I'll choose Android, MDM User, Read Only for the access type, and this time I'll tick this optional feature here to add a lock emoji, so that end users know that these contacts are read-only. Number of device connections to match your rollout, and then create. I now have a new device connection for this address book. So I'm going to download the JSON file once again, and then back over to Hexnode, and in policies, I'll select our deploy address book policy, and I'm going to make a modification to it. So let's hit manage in the top right and then modify. And we just need to make a change to the existing app configuration. So we're not making a new one. I'm going to click edit here. And we just have to fill in 3 fields here. So let's pull up our second address book JSON file, and I'll add the email address, the password from here, and the account name, which is the address book name. Scroll down and hit done. And the policy is already assigned to the group, so we've just made a small edit. We can now hit save and confirm that. Over on the device, let's check Contactzilla Sync to see the new address book. And there it is. And now over to the Contacts app, and I can choose which address book I'm looking at by going to the avatar on the top right here. And although our Contactzilla address books were set to read only for this deployment, if I do want to add a new contact with the plus icon here, I can choose to do that directly on the device, or on another account if preferable. And that's it. We've deployed 2 Contactzilla address books to an Android device using Hexnode. And if you'd like to try this yourself, you can start a free trial of Contactzilla using the link in the description below.